it's a good thing that Malu mentioned CSOs now, because it's not just the media that's affected by these accusations. Even before this silly foreign funding thing cropped up against us, um, the PCOO, the agency that calls itself Presidential Task Force on Media Safety, and some armed forces of the Philippines officials went to Europe precisely to hammer this. No? Nagtatanggap ng foreign funding itong mga so-called a slew of terrorist groups, all legal organizations. No? Why? It's because the government knows that even if it chokes local media, it will always have the eyes of the world on it. That's its vulnerability because they cannot buy, the world. So nag-aatake sila, they want to cut off what they think is the source of their vulnerability. It's just that simple. And it follows the tactics of other despotic regimes around the world.
So Malu mentioned Putin, right? Let's start with government media, government statements. When it comes top down from the podium of Malacanang, it carries clout, even if it's a lie. Then you put that together with its proxies. And I will call your attention again to what is spreading on social media. The very first attacks on Rappler were all about foreign funding, right? And that, while a lie, in many instances, I know in PCIJ's case and our case, it's actually, you can be more independent if you do not have to rely on domestic funding, because no amount of government pressure could impact that, right? So this is a way to manipulate the Filipinos, to say that just because international funding comes through that you must be beholden to them. Well, we'll turn that right back against the government, because the government is the biggest receiver of foreign funding. Does that mean that when it accepts money from China, it becomes China's vassal? It has accepted tremendous amounts of money from USAID, local governments, and national governments. What? CIA though. And be careful of these false links, right? That's being seeded in there. I think this is a time when Filipinos need to look very carefully. This is part of a playbook that's been tested and tried in other countries. It is meant to incite you. It is meant to make you feel angry that other countries are allegedly manipulating us, when frankly, what the journalists at this table are trying to do, and journalists in general are trying to do, is to just get answers to questions. Impunity has happened repeatedly. The UN estimates 27,000 people killed since July 2016 in the drug war. That's Michelle Bachelet at the United Nations. We need answers to these questions. The level of impunity in terms of manipulating the Filipino public, of poisoning the information ecosystem with lies, that also needs to stop. That is all we are trying to do, and we do it in different ways. A vibrant democracy needs all of that. So be careful of being manipulated.
Ang question kami, para saan ba yung foreign funding? Di ba? Kasi minamasama nila. Sa amin kasi sa Vera Files, we exist on grants. So lahat-lahat na projects namin, grants talaga. Para saan? Ang pinofocus nila ngayon sa amin, yung National Endowment for Democracy. But yung NED, isa lang yan sa funder namin. Kaya sabi ko nga, dapat kumplituhin nila, no? Kaya nila nakuha yung sa NED kasi, National Endowment for Democracy, gets its funds from the US Congress, so through the US AID. So it's a non-government organization in the US. So, okay. Ang mission ng NED is to promote democracy abroad, I mean outside the United States. Kami sa Vera Files, nung naghahanap kami ng funder sa amin, ang ano naman kasi ang ang aming advocacy sa Vera Files is to promote excellence in journalism and to hold accountability journalism. Di ba ganyan naman talaga sa journalism, you hold those in power accountable. Yun ang pinaka-basic kasi na role mo as a journalist para inform the public of what it is the truth, to empower the public with information para because an empowered citizenry makes for a vibrant democracy. So, pareho tayo, para naghanap kami ng funder para sa aming fact check, kasi yung unang fact check namin self-finance, naghanap kami, nakita namin yung NED. So, ibig sabihin, hindi kami dinidiktahan ng NED, kami ang nag-approach sa NED, may program kami. So, hindi kami dinidiktahan ng NED. So, ano yung namin, fact check? Ano ba yung fact check? Sa fact check kasi, what do you call that? We track false claims by personalities, government man or private, basta may influence sila, and debunk them with verified truth. Kasi nakita namin yung gaano kasama yung effect ng lies, ng mga sinungalingan sa publiko. So, anong masama doon? May problema ba gobyerno doon? Pag sinasabi namin yung katotohanan? So, may problema si Duterte kasi 5-5 sa kanya yung magkalat siya ng pasinungalingan. Sino may problema doon? Sino may kasalanan doon? Di ba? Kung kinokorek namin yung kasalanan, yung mga lies niya, hindi namin problema yun. Siya dapat ang mag-correct ng sarili niya. Pag kinokorek namin yung mga kasinungalingan niya, dapat ayusin niya yung sinasabi niya. Di ba? Huwag yung kami ang makakabulong niya. So, isa lang niya, tapos sinasabi, big deal na lumabas sila with all the funds na nakuha namin. Alam mo, lahat yan ng funds, nandun yan sa website ng NED. Walang tinatago yung NED. All you have to go to the website ng NED. Wala silang tinatago, transparent sila. Nandun lahat yung pinafund nila. Kulang nga kasi yung latest na program namin, yung 2019, hindi nakasama doon. Kaya mali yung kanyang figure. Kulang yun. Tapos tsaka hindi lang NED. Meron kaming fund from WHO, World Health Organization, funding our road safety program. Meron kaming fund from Internews, funding our environment project. Diba? We are trained journalists in environment reporting. Meron kaming grant from Bloomberg for our road safety project. O bakit ka mag-focus sa NED? Tumutulong kami to help our society safe and progress. So, anong problema ng gobyerno doon?
I think what we'd like to ask everyone is really to parse through the leaps in logic of what government and its supporters among bloggers have been foisting on the Filipino people. For example, foreign funding bad for media that's critical of the Duterte administration, but foreign funding good for the PCOO because it supports the administration. Foreign funding bad, well, not just media, but church groups, CSOs, business groups, etc. If you start criticizing the government, but foreign funding good for government, whatever it is, build, scholarship programs, the bridges, etc. So, government seems to want to have the best of both worlds. It's noted. It doesn't like foreign funding when it is going to those that criticize. And remember, these are very small amounts compared to the billions that the president had boasted. He recently got from China that billions more that had been pledged and that had been secured for some of the projects under Build. Hindi po namin maintindihan. Another logical leap would be, what is the problem really? What crime are they accusing the people listed in the matrix? First off, we don't think it's really a real network analysis. Kasi para pong sabi nga ng iba, parang word art, tapos nagdikit-dikit ng link. Actually, hindi ko namin maintindihan. The errors had been pointed out by the people on the panel, and it has not sent me an email in ages. Siguro mga 8 taon, 10 taon na. Because she worked for PCIJ, wala akong email sa kanya. She's worked for PCIJ before, yung Pea Amari scam, nung panahon ng Ramos administration with Sheila. I don't think we have any email contact with many other people on the list, on the matrix. Pero parang ano ho ba talaga yung krimen? Nagpadala ng email kaya na Matrix? I think everybody was on board doon sa YouTube. Foreign funding is bad kasi parang US-inspired media ba to? Or are we influencing the public to overthrow the government? You will not. You have not. You've never heard anything from all of the people on the panel na ayaw na natin sa Pangulong ito, tayo'y mag-aklas at tayo'y gumawa ng kung anong marahas na paraan. Ang problema po is parang yung bogey man dito, yung issue ng foreign funding. Ano po yung problema doon? Kami po nga nakapag-train na ng halos 1,200 journalists. Kasama ang lagpas siguro mga mahina sa 150 plus na taong gobyerno, civil servants, from the Office of the Ombudsman, from the Department of Education, the teachers who are advisors of school papers, the Department of Interior and Local, the Department of the Interior and Local Government, the Commission on Elections, the Judicial and Bar Council, lahat po yan humingi ng training sa PCIJ kung paano gumawa ng data work, mag-investigate, mag-connect ng data, mag-excel. Yan po itinulungan namin, foreign funded. So are we spreading the virus of what's the CIA? Wala nga po kaming alam doon. Di ba po? So parang ang problem namin dito, medyo maraming logical leap o talon sa lohika. Medyo maraming akusasyon na walang batayan. Tapos, nababago, nare-revise, na-edit yung narrative. Una, si Pangulo yung source ng Matrix. Tapos, bigla merong anonymous person na nagpadala by text. Ano po ba talaga ang problema? Hindi namin alam kung ano yung gusto nilang gawin kasi wala namang batas. So, puntahan natin yung issue ng treason o yung foreign agents. Wala po naman tayo sa state of war. Treason is something you can say kung merong state of war. Sedition, have we incited anyone? Can a story really bring down a government? I don't know what they're saying. The government media machine is the biggest, most, best funded media machine in the country. Baka naman po pwedeng mas malinaw ang storya, mas klaro kung ano yung rason, mas matibay kung ano yung arguments. Kung talaga hong tatanungin ninyo, itong mga grupong ito had come out with the most detailed, methodical, evidence-based reports on the state of the nation, not just about President Duterte, but the problems and issues affecting our community. So yung mga ginawa ukol sa kalusugan, sa kalagayan ng mga manggagawa, kalagayan ng kalikasan, foreign funded din po ba yun? Kasama ba yun sa sisingilin sa amin? So yun lang po ang aming hinihiling. This has been a very polarized society. And the polarization is actually coming, unfortunately, from people in government. Kasi sila po yung ginugulo yung usapin hindi naman mabuo yung narrative. Ginugulo yung usapin, edit ng edit kung ano yung akusasyon. So siguro, ang pwede lang talagang malinaw dito is nagpadala daw kami ng email sa isa't isa, kaya kami na Matrix. Yun lang po. Salamat po. May tanong mo ba?
Meron bang foreign organization that specializes in this? You mentioned that it happened in Russia, it happened in maybe Thailand or other countries. Those who have international experience, meron bang mga groups that actually specializes in this, that may hint na merong nag-a-advise how to do this, and then ano yung end goal? To silence us, to bully the owners? Ano bang end goal in mind?
Let me just cite data, right? And this is from the Shark Tank. It's a story that has been out on Rappler since January this year. We started looking at the information ecosystem and how there are these, quote, experts that are slowly making their way into the Philippines. We looked at one website called Daily Sentry, and one of the experts that are there turns out to be an American who is an RT, Russia Today, Sputnik expert. He is connected with an alt-right website in Canada, and then a website with a Russian IP address. We put our data together here with the data that was released from the Senate Intelligence Committee last December and found him and these websites in that database, right? So what is that? That's a direct link to the Russian Internet Research Agency. It is precisely what the United States is fighting in terms of weaponizing social media against, and what they do, it's a Russian playbook, it happened first in the Ukraine, is to pound the fracture lines of society. Meaning the end goal is to keep pounding, so you separate, you inflame anger, you make people fight, and then the second one is to stifle any alternative voices and pound them into silence. Those are the two things. So you look at Russia, and I'll speak in startup language. If Russia is B2C, business to consumer, let's take a look at some of the government deals that have been signed. You guys know hashtag Safe for Philippines. It's a surveillance, video surveillance that our government has signed with China. The video surveillance of China is among the best in the world, and it is, I look at that as B2B, business to business, right? So it goes government to government. This is one of those, it's not just the deals that are being signed, it's not just the government grants or loans, but knowledge and know-how in terms of how to control society, how to roll back democracy. And then the last thing I'll say is our problem is not unique. As early as November 2017, Freedom House said that there are 27 countries around the world where cheap armies on social media are rolling back democracy. We forget that part. It's like seeding the idea that if NUJP, if you say 1 million times that they're red, I mean, then people actually believe it. If you say 1 million times that I'm a criminal, my 30 some odd years of experience doesn't matter because you believe it. So this is a very different, it's like as our government is pushing forward an alternative reality on the podium from the presidential palace, they're also pushing forward an alternative reality on social media, which is making our people, all of us, believe that. And then the last part of that is that if you don't believe it, then you do not know whom to believe, right? So the end goal is to break down any institutions you trust so that you don't trust anyone, you become cynical, and when you're cynical, the voice with the loudest megaphone wins. Because we're journalists, we will always report what the palace says. Will we always say it's a lie? No. Right, so the voice with the loudest megaphone wins in an atmosphere where you have broken trust down in institutions. And that is very alarming to us. You know, if you look at the targets of attacks, beginning July of 2016, it was anyone on Facebook who questioned the extrajudicial killings. And they were attacked as people, and they were attacked viciously. And they became quiet. 6 months later, in January of 2017, Facebook went from being #1 on Alexa ranking since 2012, since Rappler had begun, to dropping to #8. People closed down, and then it's slowly rising up. This is all interconnected, and it sounds, you know, it sounds like a Matrix science fiction movie, but we are living in these times, and if you do not protect your rights, you will find your rights taken away from you gradually. At least that's what we're seeing.
The House Duterte plot matrix kuno is Malacanang inspired. I think we have enough basis to say that, di ba? Kasi one, sinabi ng Manila Times, which first came out with the story na it came from someone from the office of the president. The next day, sinabi ni spokesman, it came from the president himself. Nung tinanong siya kung ano yung basis, sabi niya, basta paniwalaan nyo lang kasi sinabi ni presidente. Nag-iba na naman yung kwento niya, so, but the fact is, it came from Malacanang. I think, save time for all. Ngayon, ang ano natin is, ako kasi, hindi ko alam kung nakakatawa or kung matatawa o maiiyak doon sa Matrix ngayon. Kasi one, maling-mali, no? Ako kasi kung gagawa ka man lang, ayusin mo na sana, di ba? Kasi, Intel report ko, sabi ng isang military na sa akin, official, huwag nyo nang sabihin Intel report kasi naiinsulto naman kami. Hindi ganun kami gumawa ng Intel report. Sabi niya. So, mali-mali kasi sa amin, dalawa doon sa trustees namin, matagal na nawala sa Verapal. So, hindi man lang in-update. Yung dalawa doon na babae, ginawang lalaki. So, sa PCID, maraming wala rin, sa inyo na sinama. So, mali-mali yung si Inday, ginawang abogada, di ba? Sa how wish yung Inday, dapat. Tapos so, ang ano ko lang kasi is, primero katawa-tawa, no? Pero at the same time, nakakaiyak, alarming kasi, kung ganito pala sila gumawa, yung para bang bara-bara, tsaka garapalan, kaya nila gawin kahit ano. So, wala silang pakialam kung totoo o hindi, basta gagawin nila, kaya nila gawin. So, yung tinatanong tayo ng Chino is, do we expect, diba, yung, mas ano pa, with what happened, kung ganito pa sila gumawa sila ng kwento, anything, they can do anything, they can invent anything kahit pa yung pigs can fly, gawin nila, pwede nilang ipalipad yung
Si Inday,
mga baboy doon.
before we, kung may katanungan po, pwede mo tumayo at
If we still need any proof, okay, that the government has instituted a strategy of lies as part of its governance since day one, it is Sal Panella's remarks. We do not have to prove anything. That goes against every single tenet of democracy. It goes against the Constitution, and yet the government's top officials do not care. As for who are their puppet masters, if I got the question right, who are the foreign brains behind all these moves, the pincer-style attacks, this is Sheila Coronel's phrase, against media and different CSOs. President Duterte himself loves to banner gifts from his foreign intelligence friends, gifts from his foreign masters. And in the end, it doesn't really matter because the so-called intelligence are so bad. I'll tell you how I ended up a lawyer. It was simple. The NUPL was holding a forum on DDoS and other attacks and other assaults on media. Danny Arrow, who also ended up in that matrix, and I and one more person were speakers in that forum. Somebody came up, asked for a brochure of NUPL, which of course it gave because it's a legal organization. That matrix showed all the names on that brochure plus the 3 speakers in the forum. That is intelligence. We all should be really scared that this is the way the government implements or claims to implement the law through absolutely baseless data.
Quick lang. You know, we've always been talking of this culture of impunity in relation to media killings. The attacks on the press, walang accountability there. But with the way this government is going, I think the gauge of real impunity is how they can say stupid things and not care. And make stupid things appear to be true. No? And insist that these are true. Yun ang tingin kong nakakatakot sa lahat. So, if they can continue doing this and there's no pushback, believe me, there will be a crackdown. Sa tingin ko, there will be a crackdown on us. What I hold, I'm worried and I'm scared. But what keeps me, looking forward, and I hope all of us also remember this, are the lessons of history. The lesson of history. What did Marcos do in 1972? He shut us down, except for the crony press. But eventually, it didn't last for long. Kasi you cannot stifle the truth forever. So yun lang. Despots come, they will go. The truth lives on. Media will outlive them. Panghawakan lang po natin yan.
Alright, question from
Kaya kung ma'am, I'll just make my voice louder. Pardon me for asking ko, no, but based on the behavior kasi of the president, when he decides to focus on something, he really focuses and thinks on it and doesn't stop. Just like, for example, what's been happening to Rapper and also to ABS-CBN with the threat of the franchise. But Ma'am Malu, you mentioned earlier that you think this all started from the story of PCIJ. Ma'am, I'm just curious about
I was saying the recent statements of displeasure by the president was in fact triggered, and you'd see the timeline from what we've tracked. Nagalit siya doon sa storya, di ba? And that was when he started spreading the fire and hit at Rappler again, hit at ABS-CBN, Solita Monsod, Winnie Monsod, and then iba na naman threatening to say, pera-pera lang kayo, I will expose you, wait kayo. The day before the Matrix came out in the Manila Times, actually the president was in a public event also. And he was saying, tomorrow, just wait, pinaperfect pa namin. So, I mean, the series of events would show that there would be some trigger, and then I agree, he focuses on it for some time. Now, I think the key point to look at it here is, why are the surrogates the ones speaking? And a spokesperson that's so inconsistent with this narrative. So, parang for a while, you're not hearing anything really at all. I'd like to hear from, let's say, the government agencies that are really responsible for clarifying foreign funding. Because, to me, it's really unusual that in October 2018, the government actually, the president issued an EEO relaxing the negative list, meaning the prohibited sectors of the economy where foreign money could come in. It's unusual, for example, also that the president would have forgotten that Davao City got a lot of money from USAID for GEM, from Agile, and that made Davao City one of the best cities in the country. So could that be forgotten? So yung ganong, consider the big picture, consider the facts, consider the specific cases of proof or lack of proof. I think we are seeing that what Nonnie said, they build little yarns, they make pigs fly, they actually voice all these contorted, distorted, unclear narratives on everyone. I just hope we would be paying more attention as journalists and looking at the specifics that no one says. And start asking them, the Manila Times handbook says 5 W's and H, who, what, where, when. The why and the how are sorely missing. I think they're not doing their job very well.
Thanks. The question is great, but I think you have to pull out over the last 3 years, right? Because the PCIJ did an amazing job with looking at all of the data that's there. That made them a target now, but certainly the Inquirer was the first target. ABS-CBN remains a target. Rappler is a favorite target. Maybe I'm too lippy. I talk too much. And I guess part of what we're trying to tell you, this new round is far more insidious, far more straightforward. I've always said there's an abuse of power that's happened, right? I'm not sure what the middle ground is. I was just thinking as we're talking, we are traditional journalists in the sense that I sound like an activist. You know what I mean? I mean, not saying that that's wrong, but these are the times. If you ask me, where do I stand in the political spectrum? I tend not to stand in the political spectrum. That's the training that I've received. But when I'm arrested twice in 5 weeks, I have to stand up for my rights. This is not business as usual. In the 33 years since martial law, since people power, we've all covered the Philippines. I've covered Southeast Asia and South Asia. I've never seen anything like what is happening today. It is happening in plain sight, and it is counting on you to duck or to look away, because every time we concede a battlefront, they take that and our rights guaranteed by the Constitution are curtailed. So our democracy is fundamentally changed in the last 3 years. And the fact that we have to come together, that the atmosphere of fear, press secretary says all the time, oh, we have a vibrant press, anyone can write anything. The next part of that should say freedom of the press and freedom of expression should not have costs, right? But obviously, you can see the costs for every one of us just by exercising, just by asking questions.
I just need some context to the numbers you presented. No, the killings, the journalists killed. Were these killings? Were these journalists killed as they were investigating, pursuing stories against the Duterte administration, or for some other reason? And so that's the first question. And the second question is, how do you see the days and weeks, months shaping up? No, I read Sheila's column, and she said all these are meant to soften the ground for a crackdown on journalists. Do you in fact see a crackdown anytime soon? Do you see the government letting loose the death squads on you? And then third is, I understand your call here is for other journalists and for the public at large to see through what the government is doing and trying to rally them to, but do you see, is it fair to say that the response to your call has been tepid so far?
Well, as far as a crackdown is concerned, I think it's ongoing, but I think it's going to be worse. And I share the pessimism of Nonoy here. I think the idea, the point of all of this is to rally public opinion against certain media organizations, and particularly the independent press, and towards something like a shutdown, an attempt to shut down. I mean, after all, what the Duterte administration has demonstrated is that it can do anything it wants at this point, and the only argument that you will get from them is take us to court, and so on. So I think there is a great possibility of something even worse, and I think that this is a prelude. As far as the rest of the press is concerned, I think what should happen is that the press should come together and unite and resist this impending catastrophe. But unfortunately, however, there's a lot of division in the Philippine press, and you have people taking all sorts of positions and very odd, and they express very odd views, especially organizations that are supposed to be committed to press freedom. So there's that problem. I mean, and the reason why there is this problem as far as unifying the Philippine press and media is concerned is that there are sometimes conflicting political and economic interests behind the media organizations that they serve. But I think independent journalists, regardless of what the interests of their organizations are, should unite in this effort to resist this impending catastrophe. And I think that catastrophe is most likely going to be shutting down certain media organizations, maybe even worse. I mean, Nonoy mentioned the martial law experience. I lived through martial law. I mean, and I don't want to go through that again. But I think the times call for the media, the entire media community, to unite. And I think that's regardless of what your political beliefs are, what your economic interests are, and so on and so forth. because it's necessary to defend press freedom and free expression. Because otherwise, our democracy, whatever remains of it, will be completely shut down.
Yeah. I'd like to clarify lang sa killings. What's the question, like the reasons why journalists are killed? Yeah. Documentation. Well, actually, to be honest about it, journalists are killed for a number of reasons. We list down work-related, and but you know, presidents have tried to justify that. Actually. Even Aquino, no? They've tried to justify the killings as the result of corruption, of unethical practice. Yes, this happened. We are not hiding that fact. We are not a perfect industry. But nothing justifies murder. Not even corruption. Yun nga, I remember a dialogue once with a former congressman. And he was pounding on that. Kaya marami kayong media pinapatay because so many of you are corrupt. So I respectfully stood up and said, Congressman, if corruption was a justification for murder, why the hell are so many of you still alive? Because it's true. We are not perfect. We have colleagues who are killed because they're corrupt, but we also have colleagues who are killed because they're doing the job right. And the main point of murder is to silence the journalist. Whatever the motive, the end result is to silence a voice. And the death of a journalist, you do not just take away a life, you take away all the information that journalist delivers to the people. And that's what makes it so sad. So sad for democracy. Because yun naman talaga yung mandate natin. All we are mandated to do is to provide the people the information they need to decide on their futures. So when they take us out, they take away all that information.
As far as the killings and corruption are concerned, the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility, immediately after President Duterte said that the reason why journalists are being killed is because they are corrupt, we undertook a study, looked into the background of those who had been killed, and we found out that only about 10% of those who had been killed had ever been accused of corruption, and that 90% were actually fighting criminal syndicates, drug syndicates, corruption at the local level, and so on. So that's entirely false in the first place. But of course, the argument that if you're corrupt, then you deserve to be killed, I think doesn't need any I mean, we don't have to belabor the point that corruption by itself is not a reason for anybody's being killed.
In regard to the 12 cases listed here, last November we put out a report actually detailing the specific circumstances of each of the 12. And I think I'd like to just stress one point. The last stories filed by most of those who had been killed focused on local corruption and criminality. So yun yung isang mahalagahong bagay na tandaan in line of duty, most of it. And we do verify. May kumakanta. Anyway, check ko lang yung isang point, yung tungkol sa tanong mo doon kay Sheila na column. Okay, PCIJ doesn't actually quarrel with the so-called trolls. We believe generally it's on level 1, freedom of expression. But we have concerns about disinformation armies or paid trolls. Now, when the story broke, and in the last 3 weeks, we've been actually quietly also studying what are the messages telling us. So you say maybe the response wasn't as warm or as massive, but we'd like you to appreciate, as we do, the quality, the authenticity of the comments that are coming in from Filipinos who like the idea that independent, critical, free media should be protected. They've framed the arguments in our favor in their own words. So I'd like to think that's the authentic conversation that we'd like to listen to. Because in terms of the disinformation armies, and they are paid, we are told, and we've researched on it, up to 20,000 pesos a month, given data service rights and nice smart cell phones. So we don't want to begrudge individuals here. You know, we want to look at the masters of the trolls. We'd like to see whether there's public funding or money going into this disinformation armies. And we know that whatever explanation we give them, they probably will not listen. In the first place, maybe they have not even read the stories that these groups had put out. So that's the alternative reality, how unfortunately. We'd like to look at the authentic conversation that we must all engage in with our citizens and let them do, in their own words, say their piece about what's happening in the country, appreciate the issues. We'd like the government to focus on the issues and not do wayward narratives that do not stand the test of authenticity or consistency. So I mean, that's the things I think that would be very important. But by the way, I think if you look at the data on USAID, if only the people had written about it, the database of projects. National Endowment for Democracy, it's been disclosing 1,400 grants every year across the world. USAID, hundreds of millions of dollars going into Marawi, Davao City, etc., GEM, Agile projects. It's there for journalists to look at, okay? Filing of SALN, deadline April 30, we might want to check out what new filings they've made. Okay, so this is the path that PCIJ takes. We do quiet plugging work. We'd like to be really evidence-based in our report. And that's why we say 207 days since we last filed our request for the President, Mayor Sara, former Vice Mayor Pulong to respond to our story. No comment as yet. Take the story to where it should be. Respond to it according to specific points that we've raised there. And don't give us the bogey of foreign funding, CIA. So, final point is, you know, foreign media is all over the place. Who doesn't watch Netflix here? Who doesn't watch HBO, CNN, Cinemax, and all the different media, Arirang, so China TV. I mean, my point is, you don't bring down a government because a small group had received of independent media had received foreign funding. And so the proposition is, by our work, we will bring down this government. Hello? Foreign media is all over the place. And government is getting foreign funding from all sorts of governments that are partners of the Philippine government and the Filipino people in achieving democracy. I just hope that we look at, you know, the narrative is more layered. Their narrative is a bit contorted, distorted, confusing. So let's ask for more evidence. Let's look for consistency, authenticity in what they're telling us. May katanungan pa ho ba? Did I answer your question? Boosted yata din yung ibang ads. Yes.
I just find it, my name is Noel. I just find it very striking. I wonder if it struck you the same way. The ultimate way by which we can hold public officials accountable is to the SALN lifestyle check. Do you see the parallel that this government is going after where your money is coming from? I see the parallel. You hit us on the money, we'll hit you on the money. The wrong analogy is this. Unexplained wealth is not analogous to foreign funding because it's not income. It's not asset, right? It's not self-generated asset. There's a whole gamut of fallacies in that argument. Number two, and I think I'd like to make this point. I'm not a media personality, media person. I'm a Facebook person. But I was just wondering, again, I'm struck by the fact that looking at the matrix, which they could not prove, they resorted to a legal means, a legal process, to justify and seek proof, to prove the matrix by arresting Jaime, this guy. who uploaded it through a website and what do you call that, YouTube. But he is not the author. But still, there is a legal cover that justifies the story that this is the guy who is in cahoots with a guilty person, and we're going to make you sing. We're going to extract information from you. Otherwise, we'll throw a whole garbage full of cases like under cybercrime, libel, child abuse, including now sedition, inciting to sedition. But any self-respecting lawyer or a law student who knows the elements of the crime know that this is all full of loopholes. Okay, I will not go into sedition. Definitely, it's not going to fall. It's not going to fall in place. Cybercrime, only if you're the author. The most logical case that we will have against this guy, by which to pin him down, would be libel. So I would suggest that I think it would be prudent for the media to approach it by looking at the issue as a point of attack. One, engaging the public in questioning the basis of why libel itself is a cybercrime, which it should not. It should not be, because if you look at the protocols, the discussions behind this, the anti-cybercrime treaty, libel was not even considered. You look at I forgot the accord, but you look at the dialogues between the state signatories, libel definitely was rejected. So we are the only country who seems to have included it deliberately. Number two, you parallel that with the move that libel itself should be decriminalized in the first place. So there is that discourse that hits ordinary citizens. If organized and trained media practitioners can be sued for libel for doing their job right, where do you think you'll be if you post on Facebook? The same cybercrime, the same elements that attend the media will attend you. Right? And I think this is the narrative that is not getting to the ordinary citizens that this is not a media fight. This is a freedom fight. Okay? Now, the thing is, I think we have to engage the public in that discourse and try to veer away from the story, because this is the lie that has been repeated often over the years. Do not intervene here, because this is my fight against women. The church has nothing to do with it. You have nothing, women, you have nothing to do with this fight, because this is about human rights. Human rights, no, this is about drugs. So you are not involved here. In other words, segregate the fight. Control the battlefield. I shape the battle.